It's on. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Now it's working. There we go. All right. Jaya Radha Kunda Bihari His Divine Grace, Abhaya Charananda Bhaktivedanta Goswami, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, ISKCON Founder Acharya, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Ananda Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai, Namacharya Shilahvidas Thakur Jai Brahma Say Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shidwaita Radha Shivasili Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Govardhana Saim Kunda Radhakunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Ki Jai Mathura Ki Jai Chaitanya Swami Ki Jai Yamunamaya Ki Jai Srimati Lasadevi Ki Jai Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Gaur Premananda Hari Hari Bol. All glories the assembled devotees, all glories the assembled devotees, all glories the assembled devotees, all glories to Shri Guru Gauranga, Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai. Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Vastaya Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Namani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharini Nivashesha Shanyavadi Pashyate. So, today we are reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto, 3rd chapter, text 22. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, Gokul, maybe you should leave your phone over here because it's very weak, the signal. Okay. I am to Asabhyas Tava Janma Now Grihe Shrutvagrajams Te Yavadit Sureshvara Sa Te Vatharam Purushahai Samarpitam Shrutva Junaiva Visharati Udayudaha. I am Tvasabhyastava Janmana Brigade Shudvagrajamstein Yavadit Sureshvara Satevataram Purushai Samarpitam Shudvadunaiva Visharat Yudayudaha. I am Tvasabhyastava Janmana Grike Shudvagrajamstein Yavadit Sureshvara Satevataram Purushai Samarpitam Shudvadunaiva Visharat Yudayudaha. I am Tvasabhyastava Janmana Grike Shudvagrajamstein Yavadit Sureshvara Satevataram Purushai Samarpitam Shudvadunaiva Visharat Yudayudaha. Okay, someone else.
I am to Asabhyastava Janmano Grihe Shrutva Grajamste Nayavadit Sureshvara Satyavataram पुरुषै समर्पिता श्रुत्वा धुनैव विशरति उदायुधयः अयं सुरयस्तवजन्मनो गृहे श्रुत्वा व्रजां सेनयवति सुरेश्वरा सत्यवतारां पुरुषे समर्पिता श्रुत्वा नैव विशरति उदायुधः
Ladies, anybody?
अयं स्वभयस्तवाजन्मनो गृहे श्रुत्वा व्रजां सेनयवति सुरेश्वरा सत्यवतारां पुरुषे समर्पितम्
Okay. I am this rascal to but a sabya who is not civilized at all. Asura means uncivilized, and Sura means civilized. Tava of your lordship. Janma, the birth. No, our. Grihe, into the home. Shudva, after hearing. Adrajan, take all the brothers born before you. Nyavadit, killed. Suraheshvara, O Lord of the Suras, the civilized persons. Saha, he, that uncivilized Kamsa. Te, your. Avataram, appearance. Purushai, by his lieutenants. Samarpitam, being informed of. Shudva, after hearing. Aduna, now. Eva, indeed. Abhishadati, will come immediately. Udayudaha, with raised weapons. Translation. O my Lord, Lord of the demigods, after hearing the prophecy that you would take birth in our home and kill him, this uncivilized Kamsa killed so many of your elder brothers. As soon as he hears from his lieutenants that you have appeared, he will immediately come with weapons. So, purported by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Kamsa has here been described as asabya, meaning uncivilized or most heinous, because he killed the many children of his sister. When he heard the prophecy that he would be killed by her 8th son, this uncivilized man, Kamsa, was immediately ready to kill his innocent sister on the occasion of her marriage. An uncivilized man can do anything for the satisfaction of his senses. He can kill children. He can kill cows. He can kill brahmanas. He can kill old men. He has no mercy for anyone. According to the Vedic civilization, cows, women, children, old men, and brahmanas should be excused if they are at fault. But asuras, uncivilized men, do not care about that. At the present moment, the killing of cows and the killing of children is going on unrestrictedly. Here, Prabhupada is talking about abortion. And therefore, this civilization is not at all human. And those who are conducting this condemned civilization are uncivilized asuras. Such uncivilized men are not in favor of the Krishna consciousness movement. As public officers, they declare without hesitation that the chanting of the Hare Krishna movement is a nuisance. Although Bhagavad Gita clearly says, Satatam kirtayantom amyatantas jadridhavrataha. According to this verse, it is the duty of the Mahatmas to chant the Hare Krishna mantra and try to spread it all over the world to the best of their ability. Unfortunately, society is in such an uncivilized state that there are so-called Mahatmas who are prepared to kill cows and children and stop the Hare Krishna movement. Such uncivilized activities were actually demonstrated in opposition to the Hare Krishna movement's Bombay Center, Hare Krishna land. As Kamsa was not expected to kill the beautiful child of Devaki and Vasudeva, the uncivilized society, although unhappy about the advancement of the Krishna consciousness movement, cannot be expected to stop it. Yet we must face many difficulties in many different ways. Although Krishna cannot be killed, Vasudeva, the father of Krishna, was trembling because in affection he thought that that Kamsa would immediately come and kill his son. Similarly, although the Krishna consciousness movement and Krishna are not different, and no asuras can check it, we are afraid that at any moment the asuras can stop this movement in any part of the world. Wonderful purport. Ayam tvasabhyastava janvana grage Shudeshvara Sate Vitaram Purushai Samarpitam Shubhandunaiva Visharat Shudai Yutaha. So Om Ganat Sivadanda Shagananjala Shlakaya Chakshu Unminitam Yena Tasmai Shigarave Namaha. So let's try to understand the difference between civilization and people who are not civilized, uncivilized people. So the difference is, or at least the description of uncivilized people is described in the Srimad Bhagavatam by Lord Rishabhadev. Actually, very interesting verses in the 5th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. He says, Nunam pramata kurate vikarma yadindriya pritya apranoti. So uncivilized men consider the satisfaction of their senses to be very, very important. Nunam pramata. They become pramada or pramata, which means still more mad. Kurute vikarma. They commit vikarmic activities. Vikarmic activities are activities in opposition to the Vedic injunctions. Activities which give you a bad result. Bhagavad Gita describes there as vikarma, karma, and akarma. For those of you who don't know, little Bhagavad Gita lesson. Vikarma means things that send you to Yamaraj for punishment. Akarma means Krishna conscious activities, things that have no karma or no results in them. And just the plain old word karma in this particular context means activities that are in accordance with the karma conscious sections of the Vedas, which means gives you a good result. You go to the heavenly planets, you can enjoy, you become rich. Like in many cases, devotees, not devotees of course, people here in Fiji, they try to perform these karmic activities in order to elevate themselves. Now it's very interesting that sometimes people in the Krishna conscious movement call people who are not devotees karmis. It's not really precise. Usually it's vikarmis or kukarmis. Means bad karma, kukarma or vikarma. And some of them may be karmis, maybe 1 million of them, who are vegetarians and following a few simple rules and regulations of the Vedic injunctions. but mostly they're vikarmis. So the point is that uncivilized means acting like animals. Also, Lord Rishabhadeva says in the 5th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam that Nayam deho deha bhajanri loke kashnam kama adate vidbhujam ye tapo divyam puchuka yena shatvam shudya dyasmad brahma shoka chwanantam. A very interesting verse about the definition between civilized, uncivilized, or human beings who act like animals and human beings who act like human beings. He says, my dear sons, he's actually addressing his sons. He has 100 sons, quite a bit. Krishna had more sons. Does anyone know how many sons Krishna had? Each wife had 10, so do the mathematics. 16,108 times 10. 160,000. Anyway, so he had 10 sons, and they. Does anyone know who the chief son of Maharaj Rishabhadeva was? Bharat. Yeah, that's right. And so he was instructing his sons, Nayam deho deha bhajam riloka. You've taken a human body, which is very rare. Also, Prahlad Maharaj says, Durlabam Janman Janma. The one taking a human birth is very rare. It's very rare to be a human being. For example, there's more lower creatures in this room than human beings, and I'm not criticizing any of you by saying that, because there's more bugs and microscopic creatures in this room than there are devotees or human beings. So, Nayam Deha Deho Bhajam relocate. It's been very difficult. You've taken a human body. Kashtam Kamham Arate Vidbhujam Ye. So you shouldn't act like these stool eaters. That's what a hog is called in Sanskrit. Vidbhujam Ye. Because what do the hogs do? The hogs just, anyway, eat, sleep, mate, and defend. It's typical Krishna conscious philosophy. Vidbhujam tapo divyam. Here's the interesting point. Tapo divyam. You should execute transcendental austerity. Utraka yena sattvam. Shudyat yasvad ramashokya tvanantam. In this way you will actually become happy by executing austerity. So what is that austerity that makes us a human being? Is it sleeping on a bed of nails? No. Is it torturing the body? Because Krishna says in the Gita that those who torture the body are demons. So if you engage in too many physical austerities, especially for political purposes, like Prabhupada commented about politicians who fast, we should not mention their names, then you're considered a demon. So what is this austerity that we're supposed to perform? Well, it's very easy. These austerities, or the austerity that we're supposed to perform, is the austerity of accepting everything favorable for serving Krishna and rejecting everything unfavorable for serving Krishna. That's the austerity. When Lord Rishabhadeva mentions tapo, divyam, transcendental austerities, he's not referring to just like torturing the body or doing something that's very difficult, but basically doing something that pleases Krishna. And in this way, he says, you'll be happy. So that's it. Krishna conscious austerities are happy. So how do we know what to do and what not to do as far as our austerities are concerned? We have Shastra, we have Guru, and we have Sadhu. And we should guide ourselves in that particular way. Just like, I'll give you an example of my own particular life. Things get a little austere. But then I'm thinking, what would Prabhupada want? That's the austerity. I may want this, I may want that. Even in Krishna service, I may think, I may want something. But then Krishna reveals to me that Prabhupada would want me to do this, so I just do that. In other words, That's how you conquer the mind. People ask all the time, how can you conquer the mind? Chanchalaya manaha Krishna. Pramatid balavadradam. Tashaham nigraham manye. Vayor eva shidushkaram. The mind is what? Restless, turbulent, obstinate, more difficult than controlling what? You control it through the intelligence, and the intelligence is fixed upon the order of the spiritual master and the Vedic injunctions. That's all. That's mentioned also in the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Vyavasayatmake abhudir ekeha guru nandana. One-pointed intelligence. So by this intelligence, if one can actually control these impulses born of the mind, manasashtani indriyani prakritishtani karshati, of the mind and senses, then one can actually, first of all, be happy and be a human being, and one can actually conquer Krishna. That's the amazing thing. Krishna, that's the final point when we're talking about surrender to Krishna. It's the means of controlling Krishna. If one can conquer the senses in the mind, and of course of all the senses, the tongue is what? Most voracious and uncontrollable. And so, Atakshri Krishna Namani Nabhavet Grayamendriya Sevan Mukhehi Jivado Swayamevas Purachada. If you can serve Krishna, if you can conquer the tongue, then you can actually understand your real spiritual identity. This is actually an interesting verse. Atakshri Krishna Namani Nabhavet Grayamendriya Sevan Mukhehi Jivado Swayamevas Purachada. So that's Krishna consciousness, making your intelligence very strong, and then you won't be an animal. Because that's what distinguishes an animal from a human being. Not that someone who's wearing a dhoti is necessarily a human being. You could put a dhoti on a dog, but it's not going to make you tilak on a dog or neck beads on a dog. It's actually a funny picture if you picture a dog with tilak and neck beads. And you can give them a spiritual name too. I was just at someone's house and they gave the dog a spiritual name. That's all right, because in that way, every time you cry out for the dog, you're chanting Krishna's name. It's like a Jambil. Jambil was crying out, Narayan, 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 referred to his son. Someone else was crying, calling his dog Narayan. Narayan, come here. Narayan, let me pick up the stool or whatever. It's like that. But at least they're chanting the name of Narayan. So what makes a devotee is one who is actually controlling his mind, vacho vegam, manasa krodha vegam, jiva vegam, udara pashta vegam. Controlling everything with the intelligence. So anyway, that's the first point here. That's the difference between civilized and uncivilized. And of course, Kamsa here, our friend Kamsa, he considered basically his satisfaction to be most important. He was ready to do all these sinful activities which go completely against Vedic civilization. There's another point Prabhupada makes here in the purport, that where cows, women, children, old people, and brahmanas are not protected, that's not Vedic civilization. And of course we see it in the world today. There's so many wars going on, and they're attacking all these different entities, women, children, old men, of course not too many Brahmins around. Of course in the country of Ukraine, we have about 15,000, 20,000 devotees, so there must be a few Brahmins around too. So that's Vedic civilization, cow protection, protecting the ladies, protecting the old people, etc. So that's the first point here. If someone has uncontrolled senses, they'll do all these sinful activities. Another point here is that our Krishna consciousness movement is sometimes put into difficulty. Prabhupada here, when he is writing this purport, is making reference to the Bombay project, which is called Mumbai right now. How the Bombay project was attempted to be destroyed by Mr. Nair and Mrs. Nair. Some of you may have read about this. And in fact, at one particular juncture, they sent the municipal bulldozers and people meant to destroy the temple, and they were tearing down the temple around the deities and dragging the pujaris away. But what happened is that this particular situation was not successful for the demons. This particular situation helped our movement even more because it made us very, very popular, and we won popular support, and ultimately we were able to conquer these demons. And actually even this demon, Mr. Nair, Prabhupada was very happy when he died. Practically, Prabhupada had a feast or something like that when he died. He said Krishna has killed him because, just like in the Vedic injunctions, that if you have a poisonous snake, it's all right to kill a poisonous snake. And so Prabhupada compared him to a poisonous snake. So anyway, so Prabhupada is making reference, and therefore we're going to find so many situations like this where we are threatened, challenges, etc., like that. And a devotee, when we come across situations like this, we should not see them as problems, but as opportunities and challenges. Because Krishna will ultimately be successful. However, although Prabhupada here said, the Krishna conscious movement and Krishna are not different, no asuras can check it, but there is one thing that can check the progress of our movement, and that's Vaishnava Aparad and the devotees fighting each other. Because if the devotees cooperate, Krishna's presence is manifest. And if the devotees fight and commit offenses against each other, especially, it's all right to have differences of opinion, but when we engage in ad hominem attacks, ad hominem means personal attacks, it's all right, I say. Of course, I have the right to check, There's probably so not chastity, but let's say let's say we're just ordinary Prabhus. It would be nice to be ordinary Prabhu. So and I have some disagreement. Spook says, I think we should offer a lot of the deities, and he says, I think we should offer love drugs. And so we're having this disagreement, which is fine. Differences of opinion are nice. Individuals. We have free will. But when it gets to the point where I say to Sumukha, you disagree with me, criticize you personally in a personal way, then that is Vaishnava Aparada. And that will actually result in the halting of. It's really important to understand that, because you lose Krishna's anymore. Therefore, Prabhupada, interestingly, mentioned this before in several of my papers that I've written. BC, when they meet, what's that? Unity and diversity. Some people are going to become conservative. Some people are going to be liberal. You understand? Liberal, conservative. But internet keeps going off. But to denigrate people, to criticize them, is not what we want to do. Everywhere, here in G, wherever we are, we should appreciate everybody's individual offering of devotion to Krishna and not engage in that. This movement will go on and increase exponentially. Exponentially means, 2 times 2 is 4, 4 times 2 is 8, 8 times 2 is 16, 16 times 2 is 32. I'm giving an example. Exponentially is different than arithmetically. Arithmetically is 1 plus 1 equals 2, plus 1 equals 3, plus 1 equals 4, plus 1 equals 5. So this movement will expand dynamically if we actually appreciate each other and love each other. Prabhupada also stated in the Nectar of Instruction, in his purport to this famous verse, Dadati pratikradati gunyamakyati prichati bhokte bhojite jaiva. The Vaishnavas engage in loving exchanges, like, giving prasadam, accepting prasadam, giving gifts, accepting gifts, revealing the mind in confidence, that means no talking, and hearing from others. So Prabhupada said that is how our movement goes on, and it's increasing because of those loving exchanges. People will be attracted in unlimited numbers to our movement if devotees love each other. Not in a sentimental way, but see each other as brothers and sisters and parts and parcel of Krishna. I mean, we're supposed to see everybody as part and parcel of Krishna, right? Mami Vamsa Jiva Loke Jiva Bhuta Sanatana. Isn't it? Ham Bija Pradapita. Krishna's everyone's father. So at least we should see the devotees as our brothers and sisters. But actually we should love everybody as our brothers and sisters, but especially the devotees. And then having such a loving mood between the devotees will attract the whole world to Krishna consciousness, and our movement will never be stopped. So don't be like Kamsa in the guise of a devotee. Because Kamsa was just concerned with himself. So don't be just concerned with yourself. Try to appreciate everyone else's dedication and devotion to Srila Prabhupada and the Krishna consciousness movement. Okay, so any questions or comments? Keep it short. Questions, comments, arguments?
Should we have programs related
Consult your authorities. It depends. Krishna consciousness is transcendental. To eclipses, to Rahu, to Ketu. However, if we're in a particular culture, we have to understand that if we do certain things, we will not be respected. So it's a balancing of those two priorities. Yes, like we say, what does it say about Krishna's holy names? Niyamena Tishtan. There's no hard and fast rules for chanting Krishna's name. So one has to balance that, and devotional service is transcendental. One has to balance that with the culture that you're preaching in. That's all. Understand who's around you, what they'll talk. You know, if we do something that's culturally inappropriate, even if spiritually it's appropriate, then we're going to lose people. So sometimes we have to do things. I mean, like there's certain ceremonies that are not necessary for a Vaishnava to do. Like some of the aspects of Pinda and everything like that are not necessary. Because if you're a devotee, you're already liberating 10 generations of your family. Right? I don't want to do anything. My mother passed away, I didn't do Pinda for her, I just chant Hare Krishna. But she's not from Indian culture. If she was from Indian culture, I would do the Pinda and all the other things too. Because my relatives wouldn't. Of course, all my relatives are dead, so it's not a problem. When you're my age, you don't have to worry about relatives. Because they're all dead. They all wanted me to leave the Krishna consciousness movement. But where are they now? Because of my Krishna consciousness, they're probably in the heavenly planets right now. Enjoying with Indra. Maybe some of them are Apsaras. So anyway, but if I was born in a different culture, and the relatives were still there, and my mother passed away, yes, then definitely I would do all these different rituals. Because otherwise, I and the movement would get criticized. So it's a balance. Actually, preaching is the essence, purity is the force, utility is the principle. So you got to balance all these things that Prabhupada talked about. So it looks to the basis. All right, so you probably had these 4 different points, right? So you got to balance it. Utility is the principle, but utility you can't take it to such an extent that you're burning people out or doing things that are culturally inappropriate. I hope that addresses your question. So it's a judgment call. What you do during the Ekadasi, and not Ekadasi, during the Kotam, when there was this eclipse, and all the residents of Vrindavan, and people from all over India, went to Kurukshetra during the eclipse. And during the eclipse, they were all chanting Krishna's name, or at least Krishna was there. So it was chanting his name, and that's it. Krishna was there. It's a judgment call. I don't want to give a strict injunction as to what one should do, but be aware of the culture that you're in. Like I definitely present Krishna consciousness differently according to the different cultures that I'm in. It's just practical. For example, I'm doing a lot of university outreach. I don't even use the word preaching in the Western world, because preaching has a very heavy connotation to it. It means, you rascal, surrender to Krishna. You're going to become a dog, a hog, a camel, or an ass. Because you're not worshiping Krishna. You're eating meat. You're going to become a cow in your next life. So that's preaching. Sharing Krishna consciousness means, are you interested in hearing about Krishna? And someone say yes. And if they say no, okay. Bye-bye. So, I think it means, basically, it means being culturally sensitive, like that. Obviously, Krishna consciousness is transcendental, but sometimes we're not so transcendental. Sometimes we say, oh, I'm a devotee, I'm transcendental, but you may not be devoted. What does it mean to be a devotee? A devotee is someone who is devoted. So if you're really that devoted, you can be transcendental. For example, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur one time fed or allowed one of his disciples to eat rice on Ekadasi so he could preach and have the energy to preach. But that's a transcendental thing. I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't allow someone to do that. So, have to be practical. Okay, good question. And I avoided a difficult answer. So, who else has a question? Should we let someone online ask a question? Should we be merciful to those online? Oh, what if someone, here's someone who asked a question online. What if someone, how to understand about this, where a devotee who's close to your association speaks roughly to other devotees, criticizes and questions the level of devotion of other people publicly? What should my behavior be? And what qualities should I demonstrate in this scenario? I think you need to talk to the devotees and you're hurting your spiritual life by criticizing other devotees. Because if I could think of, if I could mention anything that displeases Krishna more, there's nothing that displeases Krishna more than offending devotees. Nothing. Offending devotees is even worse than eating meat. It's worse than eating meat. Because when you offend a devotee, then you lose a taste for hearing and chanting. It's probably the worst thing. So, all right. So you have to help that devotee. Of course, they may just get angry with you. Upadesho himorganam prakapaya dashanti. Sometimes you give someone good instruction, it just makes them angry. So that basically I just walk away from the situation. I just say, I don't want to hear anything negative about any devotee. Please, let's talk about something else, like rugby. Yeah. It's better to talk about rugby than to talk about another devotee in a negative way. Sure. So you have this rugby match today, all right? I was on the airplane coming here, and the team was there. They were not so bad. They were nice to me. So yeah, talk about something mundane, but don't criticize a Vaishnava. So, any other questions? Yeah. Chuta.
What is the talk about the channel of communication with it? Like, we have our Guruji and then also Prabhupada is our Honoracharya.
Right.
Sometimes we bypass him to coach the Prabhupada and bypass the GBC University. So, what is the proper procedure?
We can always quote Prabhupada. I mean, there's no problem. Prabhupada's our ultimate shiksha. We don't have to go to the Guru for every instruction, you know. We have Prabhupada's books, and we just, as long as we understand that by our Guru's mercy, we're getting instruction from Prabhupada. I mean, of course, disagreeing with the Guru is a different thing. That's one of the offenses, not chanting. Just like, for example, I sometimes read the books of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur or Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur or Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. But I understand it's by Prabhupada's mercy I'm able to have a right consciousness. I'm able to read these books. Not that I'm thinking, oh, now I'm finding out something that Prabhupada didn't know or didn't tell me. Wow. Now I know how to be a devotee. That's why I was in Maya the whole time. Because I didn't know what my Siddha Rupa was. It's interesting. Siddha Rupa means eternal spiritual body. And that means stepping over the head of the spiritual master. Just like even when Prabhupada was present, sometimes devotees would go to Radha Kund, and one of the Babajis would attract them by saying, I can tell you who you are in the spiritual world. And of course, that's attractive. I mean, we all want to go to the astrologers and hear about ourselves, isn't it? People love astrology for that reason. Oh, tell me all about myself. And nowadays, in addition to astrology, people have this analysis of their genetic analysis, where you take, you probably don't have that here in Fiji, where you take a little swab from your cheek and you send it into a laboratory, and they tell you who your great-grandfather, great-great-grandfather, great-great-grandmother, and then you find out that you were coming from the jungles of PNG, you know. That you discover you were not a pure Hindu anymore, so. Yeah, genealogy, it's called. So, people like to hear about themselves in these, the horoscopes like that. So, basically, we just want to hear about Krishna. That's the main thing. And the main point I'm making here is that we should appreciate each and every devotee is trying their best to serve Krishna, and they just have different angles of vision. So, any other questions or comments? Questions, comments, arguments, problems? Oh, everyone's offering obeisances here. Online. No questions. Let's see. Oh, Ekadasi. Is it true that on Ekadasi day, if one happens to go to a funeral, is doomed to hell? That was a big shock to me because I went there and I went to hell. What if someone passes away on Ekadasi, which is considered very Anyway, there's so many things. When you chant Hare Krishna, you're not going to hell. And you can't control when someone's going to pass away, whether they pass away in a Ekadasi or an eclipse or anything like that. But if a devotee is transcendental to all these time, place, and manner restrictions. Niyamena tishtat. So I don't worry about these things. I mean, if someone's funeral and they're a devotee, I'll go to it on Ekadasi, I'll go to it on any day. Just can't get into all these rituals. Although, if it's someone's culture, I respect it. I won't criticize their culture. I mean, there's one devotee in a different country, not Fiji, who was supposed to take initiation from me, and this devotee, I'm not going to tell you who it was, couldn't take it for many years because I was always coming to the country that this devotee was at during Pita Paksh and Deva Paksh. So that went on for like 10 years, basically. Devotees chanting, when are you going to give me a guru, initiation guru? Right now? No, I can't take initiation now. Because it's Pita Paksh. Can you come at a different time of the year, Guru Maharaj? Can you take a special flight from America just to come to see me? I said, I can't control these things. So the point is, if one could take initiation, one should take it when it's available, and don't worry about the time, place, and circumstance. Okay, no more questions from the devotees online. I think we'll end now. Thank you very much. All glories to His divine grace. Srila Prabhupada, Ki Jai.